Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the heart of an old, forgotten town, an enigmatic repair haven stood, its existence almost obscured by the constant desert sandstorm. Attached to the large, worn-out garage doors was a grimy sign etched with a rather odd moniker, a sight Francisco had only just recalled from the depths of his memory. It read, Aunt Mildred's Mechanics, though the once passionate owner's name was now almost faded in time. The young man stood in the sweltering heat, his eyes fixated on the desolate building. His thoughts were interrupted by the gentle breeze, carrying a few abandoned papers and leaves past him. It was as if the quiet, forgotten town whispered to him, alerting him to its presence. This mysterious place was an inheritance from beyond the grave. Francisco had never thought he'd be the heir to this peculiar workshop, especially given his detachment from his rather unconventional aunt. Nor did he recall the rules and regulations within. What caught his eye, however, was the row of lockers along the back wall. Each one bore a name tag, and beside them hung an assortment of dresses, skirts, and blouses in various sizes. He approached the lockers, his fingers trailing over the smooth metal surfaces. At the end of the row, a single locker remained unnamed. Francisco took a deep breath and opened it, revealing a crisp white shop coat and a vibrant red A-line dress. A note was pinned to the coat. For the new owner, welcome to the family business. Aunt Mildred. Francisco chuckled, shaking his head at his aunt's posthumous surprise. He'd always known she was unconventional, but this took the cake. Still, as he looked around the well-maintained shop, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. Aunt Mildred had built something special here, and he was determined to honor her legacy. With a resigned sigh, Francisco reached for the red dress.
Well, when in Rome,
he murmured, slipping into the bathroom to change. As he emerged, adjusting the dress and buttoning up the white shop coat, he caught sight of himself in a full-length mirror propped against the wall. The transformation was startling. Gone was Francisco, replaced by someone new.
Eliana,
he said softly, the name coming to him unbidden.
I guess that's who I am now, at least while I'm here.
The sound of a car pulling up outside snapped Eliana out of her reverie. It was time to face her first customer. She smoothed down the front of her dress and strode towards the garage door, hitting the button to raise it. A sleek sports car rolled in, its engine purring smoothly. Behind the wheel sat a woman in a tailored business suit, her expression a mix of curiosity and amusement as she took in Eliana's appearance.
Welcome to Aunt Mildred's Mechanics,
Eliana said, summoning every ounce of confidence she could muster.
What can we do for you today?
The woman stepped out of her car, heels clicking on the concrete floor. I'm here for an oil change and a general checkup. I've heard great things about this place, but I must admit, I wasn't expecting this. She gestured at Eliana's attire. Eliana smiled, feeling more at ease than she'd anticipated. We like to keep things interesting around here. Now, let's take a look at that beautiful machine of yours. As Eliana popped the hood and began her inspection, the woman leaned against a nearby workbench. I'm Valerie, by the way. So, how long have you been working here? It's a pleasure to meet you, Valerie. I'm Eliana, she replied, focusing on checking the oil levels. And to answer your question, I just inherited the shop from my aunt. It's my first day, actually. Valerie's eyebrows shot up. Inherited? So, you're the new owner? That's quite a change, I imagine. Eliana laughed, the sound echoing in the cavernous garage. You have no idea, but my aunt built something special here, and I intend to keep it going. As Eliana worked, she found herself falling into an easy rhythm. The familiar tasks of checking belts, hoses, and fluid levels came back to her. Memories of summers spent helping her aunt in the shop flooding her mind. She chatted with Valerie, explaining each step of the process and answering questions about the unique dress code. It's unconventional, sure, Eliana admitted as she changed the oil filter. But Aunt Mildred always said it helped put customers at ease. There's something disarming about a mechanic in a dress, I suppose. Valerie nodded thoughtfully. I can see that. It certainly makes for a memorable experience. And I must say, you wear it well. Eliana felt a blush creep up her cheeks at the compliment. Thank you. It's taking some getting used to, but I'm starting to understand why Aunt Mildred insisted on it. As she finished up the oil change and ran through the final checks, Eliana found herself enjoying the work more than she'd expected. There was something satisfying about solving mechanical problems and seeing the immediate results of her labor. All done, she announced, wiping her hands on a rag. Your car is in excellent condition, Valerie. Just needed that oil change and a minor adjustment to the fan belt. You should be good to go for another few thousand miles. Valerie beamed, clearly pleased with the service. Fantastic! I have to say, Eliana, you've made quite an impression. I'll definitely be back for my next service. As Valerie settled the bill and drove off, Eliana felt a sense of accomplishment wash over her. She'd faced her first challenge as the new owner of Aunt Mildred's Mechanics and come out on top. Maybe this unconventional inheritance wasn't going to be so bad after all. Throughout the day, a steady stream of customers kept Eliana busy. Word seemed to have spread about the change in ownership, and curiosity brought in both regulars and newcomers. Each interaction presented its own unique challenges, but Eliana found herself adapting quickly. There was the gruff truck driver who did a double-take at her appearance, but was won over by her knowledge of diesel engines. A group of college students brought in their beat-up van, giggling at first, but leaving impressed by Eliana's patience in explaining the intricacies of their vehicle's issues. An elderly couple who'd been coming to the shop for years shared stories about Aunt Mildred, making Eliana laugh and tear up in equal measure. As the afternoon wore on, Eliana found herself settling into a groove. The initial awkwardness of wearing a dress and heels while working on cars faded, replaced by a sense of empowerment. She realized that the unusual dress code wasn't just a quirky tradition. It was a statement. It challenged preconceptions about what a mechanic should look like and created an environment where customers felt comfortable asking questions and learning about their vehicles. Around 4 p.m., the bell above the door chimed, signaling another customer. Eliana looked up from the carburetor she was cleaning to see a tall man in a crisp business suit enter the shop. His eyes widened slightly as he took in her appearance, but he quickly composed himself. Good afternoon, Eliana greeted him, setting aside her work and wiping her hands on a clean rag. Welcome to Aunt Mildred's Mechanics. How can I help you today? The man cleared his throat. Yes, hello. I'm Richard Hawthorne. I have an appointment for a full service on my Jaguar. Eliana nodded, recalling the appointment in the book. Of course, Mr. Hawthorne. We've been expecting you. If you'd like to bring your car into the bay, we can get started right away. As Richard maneuvered his luxury vehicle into position, Eliana couldn't help but notice his slightly nervous demeanor. She'd seen it before, the uncertainty of a high-powered executive faced with a situation outside their comfort zone. Beautiful car, Eliana commented as she began her initial inspection. How long have you had it? Richard relaxed a fraction.
About 2 years now.
It's been a dream, but lately I've noticed some odd noises when I accelerate. Eliana nodded, her mind already working through potential causes. I see. Well, let's take a look under the hood and see what we can find. As she worked, Eliana kept up a steady stream of conversation, explaining each step of her process and inviting Richard to take a closer look when she found something interesting. Gradually, his initial discomfort faded, replaced by genuine interest. I've never had a mechanic explain things so clearly, Richard admitted, as Eliana pointed out a worn belt. Usually I just get a bill and a list of repairs I don't understand. Eliana smiled, pleased by the compliment. That's one of the things Aunt Mildred always insisted on, making sure our customers understand what's happening with their vehicles. Knowledge is power, after all. As she continued the service, Eliana found herself sharing more about the shop's history and her recent inheritance. Richard listened attentively, asking thoughtful questions about the business and Eliana's plans for its future. It's certainly an unconventional approach, Richard mused, gesturing to Eliana's attire. But I can see the appeal. It makes the whole experience less intimidating somehow. Eliana nodded, tightening a bolt with practiced ease. That's exactly it. Aunt Mildred always said that a garage should be a welcoming place for everyone, not just gearheads and car enthusiasts. As she finished up the service, Eliana felt a sense of satisfaction. Not only had she solved the mystery of the odd noise, a loose heat shield, but she'd also managed to connect with a customer who'd initially seemed wary. All done, Mr. Hawthorne, she announced, lowering the car from the lift. I've taken care of that noise issue, changed the oil, and made a few minor adjustments.
You should notice a significant improvement in performance.
Richard's face lit up as he started the engine, the Jaguar purring smoothly.
It sounds perfect. I can't thank you enough, Eliana. You've got a customer for life.
As Richard drove away, Eliana allowed herself a moment of pride. She'd faced every challenge this first day had thrown at her and come out on top. The dress and heels that had seemed so foreign this morning now felt like a symbol of the unique space she was creating. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of oil changes, tire rotations, and minor repairs. Each customer brought a new opportunity to prove herself and uphold Aunt Mildred's legacy. By the time Eliana flipped the sign to closed and locked up for the night, she was exhausted but exhilarated. Standing in front of the mirror once more, Eliana took in her appearance. The crisp white shop coat was now smudged with grease, and a few auburn strands had escaped her hastily tied back hair. But her eyes were bright with accomplishment, and a satisfied smile played on her lips. Well, Aunt Mildred, she said softly to her reflection, I think we did all right today. As Eliana changed back into her street clothes, her mind was already racing with ideas for the shop's future. She'd seen firsthand the power of Aunt Mildred's unconventional approach, and she was determined to build on that foundation. The next morning, Eliana arrived at the shop early, eager to start her second day. As she unlocked the door, she noticed a small package propped against it. Curious, she picked it up and carried it inside. The package contained a neatly folded blue dress and a note. To the new owner of Aunt Mildred's Mechanics, your aunt was a dear friend and a constant source of inspiration. She spoke often of her niece and her hopes for the shop's future. I'm glad to see it's in good hands. This dress was one of Mildred's favorites. She'd want you to have it. Keep breaking stereotypes and fixing cars. Evelyn. Touched by the gesture, Eliana changed into the blue dress, pairing it with her now familiar white shop coat. As she pinned her name tag in place, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She wasn't just running a business. She was carrying on a legacy of challenging norms and creating a unique space in the community. The bell chimed as Eliana's first customer of the day entered, a young woman looking nervous and clutching a set of car keys. "Welcome to Aunt Mildred's Mechanics." Eliana greeted her warmly. "I'm Eliana. What can I help you with today?" The woman, who introduced herself as Sophie, explained that she'd just bought her first car and knew nothing about maintaining it. "I'm a bit overwhelmed," she admitted. "But a friend recommended this place. She said you're good with first-time car owners." Eliana smiled, remembering her own first car and the steep learning curve that came with it. "Your friend was right. Why don't we start with a basic overview of your car's systems? Knowledge is the first step to confident car ownership." Over the next hour, Eliana walked Sophie through the essentials of car maintenance, from checking oil levels to understanding dashboard warning lights. She demonstrated each task, encouraging Sophie to try it herself under supervision. "You're a natural," Eliana praised as Sophie successfully checked her tire pressure. "How are you feeling about car maintenance now?" Sophie beamed. "Much more confident. I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually excited to learn more about my car. Thank you so much, Eliana." As Sophie left, promising to return for her next oil change, Eliana felt a warm glow of satisfaction. This was what Aunt Mildred's Mechanics was all about: empowering people and making car maintenance accessible to everyone. The day continued in much the same vein, with a diverse array of customers keeping Eliana on her toes. There was a harried mother whose minivan was making an ominous rattling sound, a group of teenagers eager to soup up their first car, and even a local celebrity whose luxury vehicle needed some TLC. Each interaction reinforced Eliana's growing confidence in her new role. She found herself naturally slipping into the persona of Eliana the mechanic, her initial discomfort with the feminine attire fading into the background. The dress and shop coat became simply her work uniform, no different from the coveralls worn in other garages. As the week progressed, Eliana began to put her own stamp on the business. She updated the shop's social media presence, sharing daily car care tips and behind-the-scenes glimpses of life at Aunt Mildred's Mechanics. The unique dress code became a talking point, drawing attention and sparking conversations about gender roles in traditionally male-dominated fields. Eliana also reached out to local women's organizations, offering workshops on basic car maintenance. These sessions, held after hours in the garage, quickly became popular. Women of all ages gathered to learn about their vehicles in a supportive, judgment-free environment. "I never thought I'd feel comfortable in a garage," one workshop participant confided. "But this place is different. It's like a safe space for car stuff." The comment stuck with Eliana, crystallizing her vision for the shop's future. Aunt Mildred's Mechanics wouldn't just be a place to get your car fixed. It would be a community hub, breaking down barriers and empowering people through automotive knowledge. As the end of her first month as owner approached, Eliana found herself reflecting on the whirlwind of changes in her life. The initial shock of inheriting the shop and its unusual dress code had given way to a deep appreciation for Aunt Mildred's vision. She'd discovered strengths she never knew she had, and found a sense of purpose in continuing her aunt's legacy. One quiet afternoon, as Eliana was updating the shop's books, the bell above the door chimed. She looked up to see Valerie, her first customer, striding in with a wide smile. "Eliana, just the person I wanted to see." Valerie greeted her warmly. "I've got a proposition for you." Intrigued, Eliana set aside her work. "I'm all ears, Valerie. What's on your mind?" Valerie launched into an explanation. She was organizing a charity car show to benefit local youth programs, and wanted Aunt Mildred's mechanics to be involved. "Your shop has been generating quite a buzz," she explained. "I think having you there would draw a lot of attention and donations." Eliana's mind raced with possibilities. "That sounds wonderful, Valerie. What did you have in mind?" They spent the next hour brainstorming ideas. Eliana suggested setting up a booth where they could offer free basic car care checks and demonstrations. "We could show people how to check their oil, change a tire, that sort of thing," she explained. "It fits with our mission of empowering car owners." Valerie loved the idea. "Perfect! And maybe we could have a little fashion show too? Showcase some of your work outfits? People are fascinated by the whole concept." Eliana laughed, but found herself warming to the idea. "Why not? It'll certainly make us stand out." As Valerie left, already typing furiously on her phone to set things in motion, Eliana felt a surge of excitement. This event would be a chance to showcase everything Aunt Mildred's mechanics stood for: skilled automotive work, community engagement, and challenging stereotypes. The day of the charity car show dawned bright and clear. Eliana arrived at the venue early, dressed in a sunny yellow sundress with her trusty white shop coat over top. She'd brought a selection of other dresses for the promised fashion show, each paired with sturdy work boots, a nod to the practical reality of working in a garage. As she set up the booth, with help from her small but dedicated staff, Eliana felt a mix of nervousness and anticipation. This was Aunt Mildred's mechanics' debut on a larger stage, a chance to show the wider community what they were all about. The event was a whirlwind of activity. Classic car enthusiasts mingled with curious onlookers, and Eliana found herself constantly in demand. She demonstrated oil checks and tire changes, answered questions about engine maintenance, and shared the story of Aunt Mildred's mechanics with anyone who asked. The fashion show, which Eliana had initially been hesitant about, turned out to be a hit. She and her staff took turns strutting down a makeshift runway, each outfit showcasing the blend of femininity and practicality that defined their unique approach to auto repair. As the day wore on, Eliana was approached by a local reporter who'd heard about the shop's unusual concept. "Ms. Eliana," the reporter began, "your garage has been creating quite a stir. What inspired this unconventional approach to auto repair?" Eliana smiled, thinking of her aunt. "It all started with my Aunt Mildred," she explained. "She believed that everyone should feel comfortable learning about and maintaining their vehicles. The dress code is part of that. It challenges expectations and creates a welcoming environment." The reporter nodded, scribbling notes. "And how has the community responded?" "Overwhelmingly positively," Eliana replied. "We've had customers tell us they feel more at ease asking questions, more empowered to learn about their cars. It's not just about fixing vehicles, it's about building confidence and breaking down barriers." As the interview concluded, Eliana felt a sense of pride wash over her. She was articulating a vision that had started with Aunt Mildred, but had evolved into something uniquely her own. The charity car show was a resounding success. Aunt Mildred's mechanics booth had been constantly busy, and Eliana had lost count of the number of people who'd expressed interest in visiting the shop. As she packed up at the end of the day, exhausted but exhilarated, Valerie approached with a broad smile. "Eliana, you were amazing!" she exclaimed. "Everyone's talking about Aunt Mildred's mechanics. I wouldn't be surprised if you see a big uptick in business after this." Eliana laughed, pushing a stray strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "I hope so. It was a wonderful event, Valerie. Thank you for including us." As she drove back to the shop that evening, Eliana's mind was buzzing with ideas. The car show had reinforced her belief in the unique niche Aunt Mildred's mechanics occupied. It wasn't just about the dress code. It was about creating a space where everyone felt empowered to engage with their vehicles. Over the following weeks, Eliana's prediction came true. The shop saw a significant increase in new customers, many mentioning they'd heard about it at the car show or through the subsequent media coverage. Eliana found herself hiring additional staff to keep up with demand, carefully selecting individuals who understood and embraced the shop's philosophy. She also expanded the educational programs, partnering with local schools to offer automotive workshops for students. These classes, taught by Eliana and her staff in their signature dresses and shop coats, aimed to demystify car maintenance for a new generation. One afternoon, as Eliana was wrapping up a lesson on brake systems for a group of high school students, she noticed an older woman watching from the doorway. As the students filed out, thanking Eliana for the lesson, the woman approached. "Excuse me," she said, her voice wavering slightly. "Are you the owner?" Eliana nodded, wiping her hands on a rag. "Yes, I'm Eliana. How can I help you?" The woman's eyes welled up with tears. "I'm sorry. It's just... You remind me so much of Mildred. I'm Evelyn. I sent you that blue dress a while back." Eliana's face lit up with recognition. "Evelyn, it's so wonderful to meet you. Thank you so much for the dress. It's become one of my favorites." Evelyn smiled, blinking back tears. "Mildred would be so proud of what you've done with the place. She always said you had a spark, but this is beyond what even she could have imagined." As Eliana gave Evelyn a tour of the shop, pointing out the changes she'd made while keeping the core of Aunt Mildred's vision intact, she felt a deep sense of contentment. She'd taken an unexpected inheritance and turned it into something truly special, a place that honored tradition while pushing boundaries, that empowered people while challenging stereotypes. Later that evening, after Evelyn had left with promises to return soon, Eliana stood in front of the shop, taking in the sight of the updated sign. "Aunt Mildred's Mechanics, empowering car owners since 1975. She smoothed down her red A-line dress, the same one she'd worn on her first day, and smiled. Francisco might have inherited an auto repair shop, but Eliana had found her calling. In honoring Aunt Mildred's legacy, she'd discovered a new part of herself, confident, capable, and unafraid to challenge expectations. As she locked up for the night, Eliana felt a warm breeze ruffle her auburn hair. She could almost hear Aunt Mildred's approving chuckle on the wind. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new customers, new opportunities to make a difference. And Eliana was ready for all of it, one dress and one oil change at a time.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!